The first time I ever bought a piece of land, I didn't tell a single soul, not even my own family. People think secrets are only meant for hiding ugly things, but sometimes you build a vault just to protect what's good. My daughter-in-law learned that the hard way, right on the wet gravel of a marina parking lot, while a locksmith's drill was still smoking in her hands. Welcome to Dad's Pure Revenge. I'm glad you're sitting here with me today. Before we get into how a 30-year secret came crashing down on the woman who tried to pick my life apart, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're listening from today. I read through those comments, and seeing this community grow means more than you know. My name is Thomas Vance. I'm 62 years old, and for 34 of those years, I ran Vance Precision Machine off Route 9. Just outside of Bayview, Maryland. I'm a man who measures things in thousandths of an inch. I like clean cuts, straight lines, and hard work. But if I'm being completely honest with you, and I have to be, if you're going to understand how things went so wrong, my biggest mistake in life was thinking that if I just kept my head down and provided enough, the people around me would naturally figure out how to be decent. I thought peace was something you could buy for your family by carrying all the heavy iron yourself. I raised my son, Mark, after his mother passed away when he was just 9. I tried to be everything for that boy. I took him fishing down on the Chesapeake, taught him how to turn a wrench, paid for his college outright, and handed him a clean start in life without a single penny of debt. Mark is a good boy. He has his mother's soft heart. But a soft heart in a world full of hard corners gets dented real quick if you don't watch who you let near it. Enter Vanessa. Mark brought her home 4 years ago. She was sharp, well-dressed, worked in high-end commercial real estate in Baltimore, and carried herself like the world owed her a personal apology for any minor inconvenience. From day one, I saw how she looked at things. Not at people, at things. She'd sit in my living room, her eyes darting to the original oak trim, the vintage grandfather clock my dad left me, the restored 1968 Ford Bronco sitting in the driveway. She wasn't listening to Mark. She was evaluating the estate. Mark was blind to it. He loved her, or at least he loved the idea of her. When they married 2 years ago, I gave them a generous cash gift to put toward a house in Annapolis, but I kept my business and my personal holdings completely separate. Mark didn't mind. He was proud to make his own way as an accountant. But Vanessa? You could tell it chagrined her that the old machinist in the grease-stained denim jacket was holding the keys to the real money. She didn't know about the marina building, though. Nobody did. Except my shop foreman, Hank Callahan. Hank has been my right hand for 28 years. Hank is 65, wears the same faded blue Dickies work shirts every day, and chews on cinnamon toothpicks when he's thinking. Hank's wife passed away from cancer 5 years back, and when he was drowning in medical bills, I paid off the hospital before the collection agencies could even draft a letter. Hank didn't make a big speech about it. He just looked at me across the shop floor, nodded once and said, "I'm on duty, Tom. Whatever you need." That's Hank. He's the kind of man who'd stand in front of a moving train for a friend and never brag about the bruises. The building down at the Harbor Light Marina was an old, tin-roofed boat shop I bought back in 1994. It sat on 3/4 of an acre of prime waterfront property, tucked behind an overgrown row of weeping willows near the mouth of the bay. Over 30 years, as the town grew into a high-end resort area, that quiet piece of dirt became worth a small fortune. But I didn't keep it for the real estate value. I kept it because of what was sitting inside it. Inside that building was my late wife's legacy. Her father's restored 1937 Chris Craft mahogany runabout boat, alongside a collection of vintage marine chronometers and maritime artifacts my family had preserved for 3 generations. But more importantly, in the back room behind a steel fire door were the original deeds, cash reserves, and physical bearer bonds from my father's maritime salvage business. It was my ironclad safety net. It was meant for Mark's future children, locked away under a strict trust that wouldn't touch a single hand's breadth of Vanessa's fingers. The trouble started 3 weeks ago. It was Tuesday, July 14th, 8:15 in the morning. I was sitting at my kitchen table, nursing a black coffee, when Mark dropped by unexpectedly. He looked exhausted. Dark circles bagged beneath his eyes, and he couldn't keep his hands still. "Dad," he started, staring into his mug. "Vanessa wants to expand her firm. She found a commercial parcel in downtown Towson. She says, if we take out a leveraged loan against your shop and the family land assets, we can triple our family portfolio in 5 years." I set my mug down slowly. "Mark, the shop isn't a portfolio. It's 30 years of blood and grease. And the land attached to my name stays where it is. I don't leverage what's solid for a promise on paper." He flinched. "She said you'd say that. She says you're stuck in the past, Dad. She got really quiet last night. She told me if I can't show some ambition, if I can't get my family to back us, she doesn't see a future here." That was the move. Cold, quiet pressure. She wasn't yelling at him. She was starving him of affection until he surrendered. "Tell her no, son," I said gently. "If a woman's love is conditional on your father's balance sheet, you don't have a wife. You have a tenant." Mark didn't answer. He just got up and left. That night, I had dinner at their house. I tried to keep things pleasant, but Vanessa didn't even pretend. She served the food in silence. When I asked her how her week was going, she set her fork down with a tiny, sharp clink against the china plate. "It would be better if we weren't letting prime assets rot while the market peaks, Thomas," she said, her voice dropping into that icy, measured tone she used when she wanted to make you feel small. "Mark works so hard, and it's frustrating to watch him get dragged down by old-fashioned paranoia." "Vanessa," I said, keeping my voice down, "what I built belongs to me. How I manage it is my business." She didn't get angry. She just gave me a small, dismissive smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Everything comes to light eventually, Thomas. You can't keep things locked away forever. Figure it out. Figure it out." 2 words. Said like a landlord giving an eviction notice to a squatter. She thought I was just an old man sitting on gold I was too stupid to use. If you're enjoying this story so far, take a quick second to give that like button a tap. It really helps the channel reach more folks who appreciate a story about standing up for what's right. Now, what Vanessa didn't realize was that 6 months prior, after seeing how she managed Mark's personal accounts and pushed him to sign joint debt agreements, I had taken a very quiet trip to see my attorney, Dr. Raymond Cole, in downtown Baltimore. Raymond has been managing business trusts since before Vanessa was born. We sat in his office with the high windows overlooking the harbor, and I changed my will. I set up the Vance Family Maritime Preservation Trust. Every square inch of the marina property, the building, the Chris Craft boat, and the financial reserves held in that physical vault were transferred out of my personal name entirely. The new sole beneficiary of the trust wasn't Mark, not directly. It was set up so that upon my passing, or upon a specific triggering event of my choosing, the entire property and all its contents would be deeded directly to Hank Callahan and his heirs, to be operated as a non-profit maritime trade foundation for local kids wanting to learn trades. Mark would receive his inheritance through a completely separate spendthrift trust that Vanessa couldn't touch, even in a divorce court. I gave Hank full legal power of attorney over the marina premises as the appointed site curator. I hadn't executed the final transfer of the physical contents yet, but the legal framework was signed, sealed, and recorded in the county land registry. Vanessa had no idea. She thought she was tracking a simple old man's hidden property. She had spent the last 2 months digging through my home office, while Mark and I were out on the shop floor. I noticed small things out of place. Files shifted 3 inches to the left, a property tax bill for the marina, tucked back into a drawer slightly crooked. I let her search. I wanted to see how far she would push. The answer came 6 days later. It was Monday, July 20th, 10:14 a.m. I was at home, taking a breather and clearing some paperwork, when my cell phone buzzed violently against the counter. It was Hank. I picked it up. "Hey, Hank." "Boss." Hank's voice came through, thick with tension, but steady. He wasn't yelling, but I could hear the heavy idle of a diesel engine in the background. "Your daughter-in-law is down here at the Harbor Light lot. She's got a commercial flatbed truck parked near the trees, and she brought a locksmith from town. They're standing right outside the side door of the tin building. She's telling the guy she owns the LLC. My pulse didn't jump. My chest didn't heave. A strange, crystal-clear quiet settled right behind my eyes. "Is the drill out, Hank?" I asked. The locksmith just pulled his tool bag out of the van. "Tom, he's setting up near the deadbolt. What do you want me to do?" "Do not touch her, Hank. Do not yell. Just walk over. Stand 10 feet away. Pull out your phone and record every single second of it. Tell the locksmith who you are and that the property is under active legal curatorship. Then just wait for me." "Copy that, boss. I'm on it." I hung up. I didn't rush. I walked into my bedroom, put on my good leather jacket, grabbed a manila folder off my desk, and drove down to the marina in my Silverado. I kept the speedometer right on 35 the whole way. When I pulled onto the gravel drive at 10:31 a.m., the scene was laid out like a play. Vanessa was standing there in a cream-colored blazer and designer sunglasses, holding a clipboard like she was an inspector. Next to her was a local locksmith named Gary, who looked sweating and thoroughly uncomfortable, holding a cordless drill. Hank was standing by his old Ford F-150, arms crossed, phone held up at eye level, quiet as an anvil. I killed the engine, got out, and shut the door. The latch went clack in the humid bay air. Vanessa turned around, startled for a fraction of a second, before she pulled herself together and put on that familiar, dismissive smirk. "Thomas," she said, stepping forward. "I didn't expect to see you down here today. I'm just doing some inventory audit for the family estate. Mark mentioned this place was burning cash in taxes, so I took the initiative to clear out the old storage before we list the parcel." She had forged a letter of authorization. I could see the header on the paper clipped to her board. I didn't look at her. I walked straight up to Gary the locksmith. Gary knew me. I'd hired his dad 30 years ago to set the locks on my machine shop. "Morning, Gary," I said softly. Gary swallowed hard, backing up half a step. "Mr. Vance, look." She showed me a corporate registration showing the Vance name. "Gary," I interrupted, my voice calm as still water. "If that drill bit touches that brass cylinder, you are committing felony destruction of property on a parcel owned by an independent legal trust. I suggest you put your tools back in your truck and leave before the sheriff gets here." I called Deputy Miller on my way down. Gary didn't hesitate. He looked at Vanessa, dropped his drill into his bag, and turned right around. "I'm out. Pay me for the trip or don't, lady, but I ain't getting wrapped up in this." "Gary, wait," Vanessa snapped, her voice breaking into a high, sharp register for the first time. "I hired you. You have a contract." Gary slammed his van doors and backed down the drive, gravel spraying out from his tires. Vanessa turned on me, her mask slipping completely. Her face was flushed, her hands trembling as she pointed a manicured finger at my chest. "You senile old fool. You're sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars of commercial equipment and marine stock that belongs to the family. Mark is your only son. He has a right to this equity, and you're hoarding it out of pure spite." I stood there, holding my manila folder. Hank stepped up beside me, still recording, calm as a fence post. "Vanessa," I said, my voice measured and slow, "you brought a flatbed truck to steal from a dead woman's memory and a son's future. You thought you were hunting for cash. Let me show you what's actually in here." I pulled a heavy iron skeleton key from my pocket, the old-fashioned kind that operates the heavy manual latch on the main sliding barn door, and unlocked the main entrance. I pushed the heavy wooden door back. The sun swung inside, illuminating the polished mahogany hull of my late wife's father's boat, glowing deep red and gold in the morning light. Dust motes danced in the air. Surrounding it were framed photographs of my wife, young Mark, Hank, and the old crew from the shop back in the 70s. There were no stacks of gold bullion. There was no hidden commercial inventory to liquidate for quick cash. It was a museum of a quiet, honest life. Vanessa blinked, looking around the dusty rafters in utter confusion. Where is the commercial asset list?" "The broker told me this parcel was listed under a private holding worth millions." "The parcel is worth millions, Vanessa," I said quietly. "The land under your feet is one of the last undeveloped waterfront lots on the creek." Her eyes instantly lit up. The greed returned, bright and ugly. "Then, we can sell. We can sign the transfer today. If you deed it to Mark." I didn't deed it to Mark, I said. I opened the manila folder and handed her a single sheet of paper. Read the second paragraph, Vanessa, out loud. She snatched the paper, her eyes darting across the legal text. As she read, the color completely drained from her face. Her breath hitched. The Vance Family Maritime Preservation Trust, she whispered, her voice faltering, hereby transfers fee simple ownership of Parcel 402, including all structures and permanent holdings, to Henry Joseph Callahan, as trustee and curator. She looked up at me, her mouth open, completely breathless. You gave it to the foreman? I gave it to Hank, I said. Hank has bled for 30 years to keep my business running. Hank built the trailers that carried my wife's boat. Hank never asked me for a single dime he didn't earn. And when I was drowning in grief after my wife died, Hank brought dinner to my house every single night, for 3 months, without saying a word. I stepped closer to her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. You came into my son's life looking for an account to drain. You spent 2 years trying to convince him that his father was an obstacle to be managed. But you didn't check the land records, Vanessa. I signed this trust over to Hank 3 months ago. This land isn't mine to give to you. It isn't Mark's. And it certainly isn't yours. Just then, a Kent County Sheriff's cruiser pulled up the gravel drive, its light bar flashing quietly against the willow trees. Deputy Miller stepped out, leaning his arm on his door. "Everything all right here, Tom?" Miller asked, looking between me, Hank, and Vanessa. "Everything's fine, Dan," I said, keeping my eyes right on Vanessa. "Just a private property misunderstanding. The lady was just leaving." Vanessa stood there in her expensive cream blazer, surrounded by the dust and the smell of old mahogany and salt water, completely stripped of every piece of leverage she thought she had. She looked at Hank, the man in the grease-stained Dickies shirt who now owned the very dirt under her designer shoes, and then she looked at me. She didn't say another word. She turned on her heel, her heels clicking angrily on the gravel, got into her sedan, and drove away, the flatbed truck following right behind her. If you're still with me, take a second to hit that subscribe button and join our community here at Dad's Pure Revenge. We're building something real here, and I'm honored to have you along for the ride. When Mark found out what happened that afternoon, it broke him, but it was the break he needed to finally see the light. He came over to my house that evening. He didn't yell. He didn't defend her. He sat at the same kitchen table where he'd sat 3 weeks earlier, laid his head in his hands, and wept quiet, heavy tears. He realized that the woman he married had tried to use a locksmith to break into his family's history behind his back. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Vanessa tried to claim a share of the shop and the marina property in the settlement, but Dr. Cole's paperwork was an impenetrable wall. The trust held firm. She walked away with exactly what she brought into the marriage: her car, her personal debt, and a very clear understanding that some old men know how to protect what matters. As for Mark, he moved into a quiet place near the water. He comes down to the marina every Saturday morning now. Hank is teaching him how to lay fiberglass and varnish mahogany on his grandfather's boat. They don't talk much while they work. Just the sound of sandpaper on wood, the calling of gulls over the bay, and the gentle slap of water against the dock. I sit on an old folding chair near the open barn door, holding a warm cup of coffee, watching my son learn the value of things that can't be bought and sold on a broker's ledger. I didn't get revenge by tearing anyone down. I just built a wall strong enough to keep the greed out and handed the key to a man who earned it. Thank you for listening to another story here on Dad's Pure Revenge. If this story spoke to you, please give us a like, share the video with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Remember to take care of the people who show up for you when the water gets deep. I'll see you all in the next one.